Good morning. It is Tuesday, November the 30th, 2021. Welcome to another edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. A new national poll has called into question the relevancy of the Black Lives Matter movement, with folks citing the controversy surrounding the wealth gained by co-founder Patrisse Cullors, who quit the organization earlier this year while denying that she misused any funds. We're going to discuss that and more on this edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. But first, of course, let us get into the headlines. Omicron, the newest coronavirus variant, is also the quickest to be labeled a variant of concern by the World Health Organization because of its seemingly fast spread in South Africa and its many troubling mutations. Its emergence has already led to travel restrictions, high-level government meetings, and promise by vaccine makers to start working on strain-specific vaccines just in case. But it has a long way to go to take over from Delta, the variant that dominates all over the world. And the long list of variants that at first frightened the world before falling off the map can be a reminder that viruses are unpredictable. The World Health Organization warned on Monday that the global risk posed by the new Omicron variant of the coronavirus was very high. Scotland, Portugal, and Spain identified new cases of the highly mutated variant, with officials in Eastern Germany reporting an infection in a 39-year-old man who had not been to South Africa or anywhere outside of Germany. More countries responded by restricting travel, with Japan joining Israel and Morocco and banning all foreign visitors, even as scientists cautioned that the extent of the threat posed by this strain of the coronavirus remained unknown. It's one that we continue and will continue to watch. But one of the things we do know is that officials in South Africa are saying, don't blame us. We're the ones who actually discovered this. We're the ones who've actually been coming up with a solution for this. So really, really strong words from those in South Africa, and rightfully so. We've heard so many rumors. We want to go by fact. Also in the news this morning, prosecutors who say Bill Cosby belongs in prison are asking the United States Supreme Court to throw out an appellate court ruling earlier this year that overturned his 2018 conviction for sexual assault on due process grounds. Mr. Cosby walked free from prison in June after serving less than 3 years of a 3 to 10-year sentence. His release followed a ruling by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that Mr. Cosby's rights had been violated when the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office pursued a criminal case against him, despite what the appellate court found was a binding non-prosecution agreement given to him by a previous district attorney. The petition for review challenges that decision, arguing that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court erred in its ruling. Mr. Cosby has consistently denied the accusations that he was a sexual predator, suggesting that the encounter with the alleged victim in the case, Andrea Constant, it was consensual. Testimony throughout the trial from both the Cosby side and from Andrea Constant did reveal a relationship between the two, but she broke off on a different plane when she said one night Cosby gave her some Benadryl tablets that disabled her, and then he fondled her. The court has denied previous petitions like this, and many legal experts says that this is not a federal case, and so they expect the U.S. Supreme Court to toss out the district attorney's plea here. In fact, in a statement yesterday, Cosby spokesman Andrew Wyatt said that, unwilling to accept its epic loss in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, the Montgomery County District Attorney has now filed a petition for a writ of certiorari. It's a Latin word that's used in the United States court. In short, the Montgomery County DA asked the U.S. to throw the Constitution out the window, Wyatt says, as it did to satisfy the hashtag #MeToo mob. There is no merit to the DA's request, which centers on the unique facts of the Cosby case and has no impact on important federal questions of law. the United States Supreme Court does not typically interfere with the rulings of a state's high court unless it conflicts with the decisions of other state high courts or our federal court of appeals. So this is one that we'll continue to watch. The Black press, of course, covered both trials that Bill Cosby, both Bill Cosby's trials in 2017 and in 2018. And we will continue to cover as this moves forward to see what transpires. But now we're going to talk about this new national poll that says the support for the Black Lives Matter movement has fallen off. In fact, 44% of people surveyed in this national poll said the Black Lives Matter movement is now irrelevant. Let's bring in our panel this morning to discuss this. From the West Side Gazette, our distinguished publisher Bobby Henry, also journalist Sam Collins, and Lindy Villacazzi. Good morning to our panel this morning. Good to see you guys.
Good morning.
Well, I want to, they say ladies first, and I'm sure Bobby and Sam won't object. I want to start with Lindy. Lindy, this poll says that Black Lives Matter movement doesn't have the support anymore, and they cite a lot of different reasons, including Patrisse Cullors and her alleged enrichment from the Black Lives Matter movement. She's purchased several homes, several new homes, high-end automobiles, and things of that nature. But she says that came from personal speaking engagements and her deal with Warner Brothers. Lindy, what are your thoughts on the relevancy of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I think that Black Lives Matter in theory and in spirit, it will always matter to people. It will always matter to a lot of those who protested within the Black community and our counterparts who protested and put themselves at risk along with us. I think that the campaign itself, though, has become a little diluted for a multitude of reasons. And while it may be true that a lot of the money that she has earned and homes and things that she has bought has been by way of her speaking engagement, I believe Black Lives Matter has, from donations and things, they've also gained a lot of finances that doesn't necessarily go back to the Black community. So I think that the more that people are starting to research what Black Lives Matter is actually doing for the Black community and those who have been most affected by these grievances of police brutality, it's just not matching up. It's losing a lot of steam in conversations on more of a community level. It seems like the movement has been hijacked by other people who are not necessarily us.
Yeah, and it's to your point, Lindy, more than $90 million was raised by the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 alone. And reportedly 10 Black Lives Matter chapter leaders have called for financial transparency and an independent investigation into spending funds. Sam, that in itself sounds a little problematic.
Definitely so. And I think that situation really speaks to the class schisms within the Black community and what often happens to our movements. Black people, for as long as we've been in this country, our resources and our talents have been siphoned off by the majority. So when it comes to situations like what happened to George Floyd, unfortunately, and what came out of that, oftentimes a lot of corporations, they come in and they co-opt our movements that were organic at the beginning. They often turn into mainstream movements that lose their flavor, that get diluted, like what Linda Way said. So in the midst of promoting Black Lives Matter, what was organic at first has become pretty much fodder for the mainstream. And the key players, as you've seen over the years, have become more celebrities than activists. And in the age of social media, activism is what I would like to call something that's very cliche and something that is very diluted, in the sense that people are in it more for their selfish intentions than for actualizing change. You see that with the private meetings in the White House. You see that with the celebrity culture. It's just all very infectious.
Yeah, and in addition, Bobby Henry, to the 10 for transparency, Tamika Palmer, whose daughter, Breonna Taylor, we all know, was killed by Louisville police as she slept in her home. Samaria Rice, whose 12-year-old son, Tamir, was killed on the playground by a Cleveland police officer, each have come out publicly and denounced the Black Lives Matter Foundation and accused the organization of raising money off the blood of their children. Bobby, your response to this?
Well, first of all, let me just, I'm gonna back up for a minute, Stacey. Thank you for allowing me to be on this platform with these two distinguished young people. Earlier, we had a little conversation, and I was sharing with them that I was really proud of the work that young folk are doing, you know, and so as that pertains to Black Lives Matter, during our era, you know, Deacons of Defense and Black Panthers, you know, those were organizations that we knew about and were proud of. As it pertains to Black Lives Matter, I'm not too in tune to their inner workings, what has transpired, other than what has been shared here on the program and the bits and pieces that I've read in the news. I agree with Miss Lindy when she said how things have that we don't see that comes to light. And when Brother PK shared with us how we could be infiltrated and our organization becomes watered down. And when it comes to money and finances, that's one of the most easiest ways for corruption, if you will, or any ill intent to creep into any organization and cause its demise. I don't see the fervor that was first associated with Black Lives Matter. And I think that has a lot to do with the people involved. It was Black Lives Matter. And as Ms. Lindy said, once it became a more diverse, things began to happen and it fell down. And I want to digress for 1 minute if I can. I don't know. I didn't catch the full show on yesterday. I don't know if the announcement of Senator Congresswoman Carrie Meeks was announced, her death, her demise. That was truly a pioneer that came way before Black Lives Matter. And she stood on that platform. So I want to give my condolences to Kendrick and the rest of the family and to the world for the loss of truly a Black Lives Matter champion before there was ever an organization.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Bobby Henry. Let's now, before we move forward, bring on the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Dr. Chavis, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. And we greet everybody. And I agree with Bobby Henry that Carrie Meeks was a freedom fighter.
Yes.
And we, on behalf of the Black Press of America, we extend our condolences to the Meeks family, to Brother Kendrick, and to all the family. We will keep her spirit alive. She was one of the founding energy members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and she will be sorely missed. And our job now is to keep her legacy alive.
Yeah, and I want to go back to Lindy Way comment that David Youngblood, one of our loyal viewers, we always appreciate David, has written in. David says, unless and until we take ownership of the movement, the message and the intentionality of uplifting Black life, the narrative will focus on crime or dysfunction. Lindy, any thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, I think that Black Lives Matter should be something beyond a hashtag. It's something that people have to really facilitate on a community-based level. So conversations within each community as far as what's happening, how the community is being policed, how children are being watched and handled, et cetera, et cetera. As soon as it becomes publicized, to Sam's point, for example, when you have celebrities and all these other people that are jumping into it, they're jumping into publicizing the hashtag, but not necessarily the fight of it. So it has really been taken into other people's hands and out of ours. There was a lot of literature on the website initially too about just not support of the family structure, and a lot of the money, as you said, the donations, for example, have gone to certain organizations that are donating to Democratic campaigns, and people in which a lot of the people that are supporting Black Lives Matter are not aware of and are not receiving any kind of financial benefit or support or community support from these proceeds. So I think that it would be best that it is on a community level and that we tackle what we need and our own agenda, if you will, for Black Lives Matter locally.
Yeah, and to your earlier point, Sam Collins, Patrice Cullors, how much responsibility should she take in this situation? I mean, she's one person, she's, you know, co-founder, but how much responsibility should she take? We mentioned the $90 million that they raised last year, and many in the Black Lives Matter movement, the chapters, are saying, look, we don't know where this money is going. We haven't seen any of it. And you have the families of victims like Michael Brown and Breonna Taylor and Tamir Rice saying, we're not supporting them because we've asked them to do certain things to help our communities, and they have not. So, Sam, how much should this lie at the feet of Patrice Cullors?
I think all of it, as a matter of fact, it's a matter of transparency, and it's a matter of being open and forthright about what it is that you're doing and who you're doing it for. When it comes to money, and you're talking about $90 million, that's a lot of money that could have gone toward fulfilling the movement and moving beyond police brutality. At this point, you know, and speaking to the poll, what I've seen Black Lives Matter become over the last 5 to 6 years is a movement that has struggled to put out fires, that has become more reactive than proactive. As far as the larger vision of combating police brutality and other manifestations of racism in America, Black Lives Matter has really struggled to tackle that politically, you know, through the passage of legislation and whatever else. And that pretty much just speaks to how Black people are on sort of an island in the United States. At the very same time, it doesn't help us when our very own people are taking advantage of our suffering and are taking money and are, you know, making money off of speaking engagements and aren't being very transparent about what's going on. And that's oftentimes what happens in these movements. You know, we are fighting forces on different sides. From the outside, we have forces that don't look like us, that want to pretty much oppress us. And then we have leaders on the inside who take the money and they pretty much oppress us from the inside. So to answer your question, Ms. Cullors has a lot to answer for. She has to really speak about the ethics of what it is that she has done in taking that money and not being accountable to the families and the countless numbers of other people who have suffered because of police brutality.
Yeah, and you know, I just want to remind our viewers, based on a question that James Wright is asking. He's asking, why is this an issue now? Is an issue now? We raised this issue, James, because a new national poll shows that the Black Lives Matter movement, many believe, has lost its relevancy, in part because of what we're discussing with Patrice Cullors and the situation with the families of Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor. The families have expressed some serious concerns. Claudette Perry says momentum is very important. Many times when we as Black people have the momentum in a movement, we allow it to wane because we have not created an agenda or strategy to keep it going. Bobby Henry, want to respond to that? I think we lost your volume, Bobby. You're on mute.
Right. So am I unmuted? Yeah, there we go.
Yes, you are.
Okay, and I do apologize. The question that I would ask is, what was or is there a relationship with Black Lives Matter and other Black organizations, NAACP, Urban League, National Action Committee? What is that relationship? And that would give us an idea of what significance or what role those organizations should play. Now, the question that Ms. Perry brought up, one of momentum, if we don't have lifeblood flowing in two organizations, then we're going to die. The initial motive of Black Lives Matter was genuine. You know, it gave us hope. You know, and it was invigorating, and it was momentum filled. And as time went on, maybe from the lack of relationships with Black organizations, Black Lives Matter is a young, focused organization. Our other organizations are seasoned warriors. So maybe the disconnect came when there was no communication to create or allow the momentum to continue. And that's something that we need to address in this struggle, because it is a struggle and it continues. So.
Yeah, and Sam mentioned something. I want to throw this appropriately to Dr. Chavis, because Sam mentioned something I think was very interesting. He talked about the the monetizing of these celebrities, if you will. They became celebrities. They became, with these speaking engagements, and they've kind of forgot about the movement. But Dr. Chavis came up in the civil rights movement. He was a big part of that, worked alongside Dr. King and others. Dr. Chavis, you must see a difference, right?
Well, yeah, I see some differences, but I also see some continuity. I think that, first of all, the outcry for Black Lives Matter, the reason why that term, that theme, that brand grew was because of the absence of Black Lives Matter into police departments in America. It was very clear. And young people would give them credit for stamping this force out in the public, and it was adhered to and it grew. And many movements grow. Sometimes movements grow without infrastructure. Sometimes they grow with infrastructure. And depending on the infrastructure within the movement, I think what our brother said is true. You have to have transparency. You have to have goals, objectives. You have to have accountability of the leadership. But this is inherent in all movements, throughout the world, not just in America. But I think we should not lose our focus, even when some contradictions may arise within the movement, in terms of fight for freedom, justice, and equality. So I think that the people who purport to be the leaders of Black Lives Matter movement, yes, they need to be held accountable. But I hope people don't lose the thrust of what this is all about. This is about ending systemic racism in America. Black victims of police brutality is part of a larger scheme, a larger apartheid in America that we're trying to dismantle. There's apartheid in criminal justice, there's apartheid in housing, there's apartheid in healthcare, there's apartheid in the environment. We have all these interrelated, interconnected movements. And everybody, I think that one of the things I tell people all the time, there's room for everybody. You don't have to get jealous or envious of what somebody else is doing. You organize your community, make sure your community is solid, block by block, community by community. And then when it comes time to affiliate with other organizations or even with a brand like Black Lives Matter, you got to make sure that the leaders are authentic, that they're really grassroots. It started out as a grassroots movement. And of course, people do take advantage sometimes of the suffering of our people. And that's unfortunate. We should learn from it and try to prevent that from happening. But we should not get to the state that we become so frustrated and so cynical that we start turning on one another. And I think that would be disastrous, because that would only serve the interests of the counterpoint, where the white supremacists are building and moving. They're planning to take over in 2022. This is no time for us to let down our guard and stop voting because we're frustrated. We got a lot on our plate going into the new year, and we have to stay wise, be wise. We have to learn from our history, not necessarily repeat our history.
Yeah, and David Youngblood says, Dr. Chavis, you've done this 50 years, more than that, David. Sustained and focused determination with prolonged commitment is the only answer. Lindy, I want to go back to you on another point that David is making too. He says that if Black Lives Matter movement really mattered and we were really unified, the filibuster would not be the tool to deny the vote we fought and died for. Is there from your perspective, from a younger person's perspective, is there a correlation between the filibuster and what Black Lives Matter could and can and cannot do?
I think so, to some extent, because I still say that on a community level is where things are most important to be orchestrated. And to the point of Dr. Chavis, I think that within our own community, if we are governing certain aspects of what it is that we are asking for politically, I think that we'll be able to, garner a lot better responses in our own communities, in our own hometowns. I think that you can only rely on the political system, but so much. You know, I think that in our communities, I know that people hate when this point is brought up, but you know, we also have to honor Black Lives Matters and how we're treating each other. Homicide rates in a lot of inner city, you know, areas are really off the charts. There's a lot of other things that we could be monitoring and working on in addition to waiting for these legislative pieces to be passed and helping the community, if you will.
Yeah, I appreciate the perspective. And Sam, I want to get a final thought from you on this. It's too bad we are running out of time, but I want to go around and get yours and Bobby Henry's final thoughts on this as well before we go to Dr. Chavis for his closing thoughts.
Very briefly, I wanted to touch on the point that Mr. Henry brought up about the continuity of the movements, you know, between the Urban League and the NAACP. Very briefly, once again, I think one of our Achilles heels as Black organizers and Black people is our reliance on one particular party. And that's just basically because the other party, you know, to some extent hasn't really given us much option in terms of legislating on our behalf. But the American political system has become very centrist, and it has not really been in our interest. A lot of our key players within the Democratic Party oftentimes do just enough to get our vote, but they really don't go the entire mile in not giving us, but securing what we need for our liberation. And oftentimes that's our fault as Black organizers. And I think that we as organizers have to do better in holding the Democratic Party accountable. Black Lives Matter was on the verge of doing that, but once again, lack of organization and commercialization has really impeded those efforts. And once again, in 2020, we gave our vote to Biden and Vice President Harris. In my opinion, that hasn't quite worked out in our favor yet because you see schisms, but you know, only time will tell. We do have 3 branches of government. And I will also argue that the filibuster situation was a result of conservative elements of the Democratic Party that still want to be moderate and not give us everything that we want. So we really have to go hard and hold everybody accountable, not just those who are overtly racist.
Thanks, Sam. Bobby Henry?
Mr. Host, I yield my time to the young gentleman, Mr. Collins. No, and brother, you know, as I said earlier at the show, it's an honor and a privilege. And I told you I can sleep well at night with you young folk at the helm. And so I do want to say this. Attorney Benjamin Crump, one of the fighters of and the supporters of Black Lives Matters movement, will be opening a center, a social justice center at St. Thomas University here in South Florida. And there will be a press conference tomorrow on this. But I just want to say, folk, we have to know who's in the foxhole with us. We are at war against systemic racism. Black Lives Matter, NAACP, Urban League, National Action Committee, Black Panthers, and any other organizations that are for the long life of Black people. We need to unite and have that conversation and put it all on the table.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bobby Henry of the West Side Gazette. Dr. Chavis, quick closing thought. You're on mute, Dr. Chavis. There you go.
Hello?
There you go.
Hello?
Yes.
And I said the good news is that we're moving forward in spite of the contradictions, in spite of the disappointments sometimes. We're moving forward and we're making progress. Now, are we making enough progress? No. Are we moving forward fast enough? No. But listen, this is a time that we should regather. We should make sure that our leaderships are held accountable. Everybody agrees on that. But also we need to make sure that our next generation of leaders coming up are equipped with everything that they need to take the point, and then we should support them. You know, I think that I'm very confident that whatever is going on that needs to be corrected within the Black Lives Matter movement, it'll be corrected. Truth is therapeutic. It has a way of cleaning things out. But I just want to make sure that we keep leaning forward, keep struggling, keep fighting for freedom, justice, and equality, and don't let anybody make you lose hope or make you throw your hands up and give up. This is no time for us to give up. We got to keep fighting.
Yeah, and before we close, I neglected to mention, Bobby talked about and a very important and sad passing. It was another one in the world of golf. Lee Elder, the first Black Masters champion, also passed away. You can read about that at blackpressusa.com and many of our newspapers around the country. We'll have more on Lee Elder in the days to come. The National Newspaper Publishers Association's Midwinter Training Conference kicks off in January on the 19th. We're going to be at the Diplomat Beach Resort in Hollywood, Florida. Yeah, we're coming down to Bobby Henry's country. And so the theme is the publishing industry advancing the Black press of America, reaffirming, engaging, and empowering. Visit www.nmpa-events.com to register and reserve your deeply discounted hotel rooms for this 5-star resort. You'll get the NMPA's discounted rate if you reserve your rooms by December the 12th. Today, we want to mention a couple of folks who are missing. The Black and Missing Foundation is asking for the public's help in locating more missing individuals of color. Today, we feature Maria Naisha O'Shea Powell of Gulfport, Mississippi, and Danae Rawls of Charlotte, North Carolina. Maria was last seen on November 17th. She's 16 years old. She has black hair and brown eyes. She weighs 115 pounds and stands 5 feet 5 inches. She was last seen in the 11,000 block of Highland Avenue wearing a black and yellow jacket. Anyone with information is asked to call the Gulfport Police at 228-868-5959. Danae is 21 with long black hair and brown eyes. She is 5 feet 2 inches tall and she weighs 115 pounds. Danae was last seen on November 22nd, leaving her residence on Rober Court. She entered a car with an unknown person and has not been seen or heard from since. Anyone with information is asked to call the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police at 704-336-7600. In both cases, you may also call the Black and Missing Foundation at 1-877-972-2634. Please help bring Maria Naisha O'Shea Powell and Danae Rawls home safely. We will see you tomorrow.